we are starting to read page 490. This universality is impossible. Okay?
I will read.
Yeah, please.
This universality is impossible to achieve in its completeness so long as we continue to feel ourselves as we now feel, a consciousness lodged in. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I reading the right one?
Yeah, you are reading the right one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So long as we continue to feel ourselves as we now feel, a consciousness lodged in an individual mind, life, and body. There has to be a certain elevation of the Purusha out of the physical, and even out of the mental into the Vijnana Maya body. No longer can the brain nor its corresponding mental lotus remain in the center of our thinking. No longer the heart nor its corresponding lotus, the originating center of our emotional and sensational being. The conscious center of our being, our thought, our will, and action, even the original force of our sensation.
Sorry, we have to read the universality is impossible to achieve.
Yes. What we are reading.
Yes,
Okay,
I'm reading.
Yes, she is reading correct. She is reading absolutely correct.
Continue.
Okay.
Please continue.
The conscious center of our being, our thought, our will and action, even the original force of our sensations and emotions rise out of the body and mind and take a free station above them. No longer have we the sensation of living in the body, but are above it as its Lord, possessor, or Ishvara, and at the same time encompass it with a wider consciousness than that of the imprisoned physical sense. Now we come to realize with a very living force of reality, normal and continuous, what the sages meant when they spoke of the soul carrying the body, or when they said that the soul is not in the body, but the body in the soul. It is from above the body, not from the brain, that we shall ideate and will. The brain action will become only a response and movement of the physical machinery to the shock of the thought force and will force from above. All will be originated from above, all that corresponds in gnosis to our present mental activity takes place.
So very concrete and very, very clear what he's saying. We'll look at everything. And there's a footnote before we start because it's the last word and the footnote is there. Sonki, read the last footnote. Okay. Many.
Yes.
Yeah, many.
Many, if not all, of these conditions of the Gnostic change can and indeed have to be attained long before we reach the Gnosis, but imperfectly at first, as if by a reflection, in higher mind itself, and more completely in what we may call an overmind consciousness between mentality and Gnosis.
A very, very illuminating footnote, and we will see what it means. It's very clear, but anyway. Yeah, tell me.
This footnote in the old book, that is SABCL, is in the paragraph itself.
Oh, I see. Acha, okay.
Yeah,
They must have.
I just thought
No, that's good. Okay, yeah. I don't know why they have separated, because sometimes they take decisions based on certain things that we don't know. So anyway, the text is there, so that's good.
Yeah, just I wanted to inform, no other.
Yeah. That's good. Normally, that's what I do also. I mark it on the
that's why
that's right. I think I'll do that. Okay, and I'll do that a little later. Okay. So let us see now what he's saying. Yeah. So I'm going through each sentence. Now, before we start this para, the last phrase of the previous para is but it is a first condition, and without it, there is no gnosis. So what does it mean? So what he means is that he has already discussed in that para. What he means is the first condition for going to the supramental consciousness, gnosis. If you want to go at all to the gnosis, the first condition is that you have to get rid of your ego, loss of ego, and you have to get the cosmic consciousness. Without getting the cosmic consciousness, you cannot go to the supramental world. Very clear. So in other words, he is clearly eliminating the possibility of the ascetic who rejects the physical world as unreal, and the world is unreal for him. Now, if the world is unreal for him, then the cosmic consciousness is not possible. Because if you have a cosmic consciousness, everything in the physical world is real and you are that. So how can it be? So they are opposites. The cosmic consciousness is not the rejection of the physical world. It's an acceptance of the physical world. So the first condition for going to the supermind is the cosmic consciousness and loss of ego. They are the same. You cannot have cosmic consciousness without loss of ego. Okay. And if ego is there, you cannot go to the cosmic consciousness. You are stuck in the body-mind life. That is the anchor that keeps you fixed to the body-mind life. Like a ship is anchored. It throws an anchor and it goes and sticks at the bottom of the sea and doesn't allow the boat to go here and there. It fixes it. So you can say that the ego is the anchor that fixes you in the body-mind life. So if you want to go above, like the ship, you have to lift up the anchor and put it into yourself. So here you have to do the same thing. You have to get rid of your ego. Then you are allowed to go out of your body-mind life. Who is the you? Your consciousness, your soul. Your soul can go out of the consciousness only when the ego is gone. Okay? Because the ego is that which limits you, and the cosmic consciousness is that which is unlimited. Okay? Infinite. So that's what he's saying in the previous para. Okay? Now, this universality. Now, universality and cosmic consciousness, same. Okay? We shouldn't get confused by the words. Universality. You are in the universe and everything is real for you and you are everything. Is impossible. This universality is impossible to achieve in its completeness so long as we continue to feel ourselves as we now feel a consciousness lodged in an individual mind-like body. Okay? This is very, you don't think about it that way, but you always feel that even if you imagine that you have a soul, it is in your body. That's what you feel. No? And to make that very graphic to children in the school, I tell them, where do you feel yourself to be? Is it in the head? Is it in the heart? Or is it in the toe? Or the knee? So very clearly, it is not the knee or the toe. So then they say, oh, it must be somewhere in the heart region. Okay. So this is what Shambhala is saying. We feel ourselves, the consciousness to be in the body. Okay? Now, the cosmic consciousness is when you feel yourself not in the body, but outside the body. That's what Shambhala is going to tell us now. A consciousness lodged in an individual mind-like body. So long as you feel that you are in the body, supramental gnosis is impossible. Because the first condition is get out of your body, experience the cosmic consciousness. Okay, so there has to be a certain elevation of the Purusha out of the physical and even out of the mental into the Vijnanamaya body. Okay? Vijnanamaya body, he is, by the way, he is using the word body, because even the spiritual planes of consciousness are bodies. They are material, they are substance, but very, very subtle substance. Okay, it is all substance. This is a very important thing which you must keep in mind, because very often we have vague ideas about these things, and the soul is not material at all. In a sense, it is true, it's not material because it's not gross matter. Okay, so you have to come out of your body-mind life. You must not even feel that you are in the head. You must feel yourself to be 1 foot above the head. Okay, that's what he's saying. See, there has to be a certain elevation of the Purusha out of the physical and even out of the mental into the Vijnanamaya body. By the way, you use the word certain elevation, not 100%. 100% means you are already, you realize that you are a very developed spiritual being. Certain elevation, you feel yourself to be outside. No longer can the brain nor its corresponding mental lotus. He has put the word lotus in double quotes because it means the chakra. Okay, there are chakras. These chakras are. This is another thing we'll discuss. These chakras. There are 7 chakras in the body. The 7th one is above the head, but there are 6 in the body. Okay, and they are called chakras in our Indian system, but they are actually nothing but worlds of energy. You know, like that. And the worlds are arranged. Sometimes they are like that. If it is, then it is 2. It is 2 petals. Sometimes it is 2 petals, 4 petals, and 6 petals. These worlds of energy are there, and when you get injured, these worlds of energy get broken. And the pranic healing that they do is precisely this. Okay, those who have the capacity of pranic healing, energy comes out of their fingers. Okay, sometimes they touch you physically, sometimes they don't touch you physically. Just over the body also they'll do like that. But the energy that is going, it repairs the chakras. Now, this repairing of chakras through pranic energy is not 100%. Okay, that for that you need much deeper energy. But temporarily you can get solved. But if it's a chronic disease, okay, then the old thing comes back and the damage comes back after some time. But pranic healing is a reality. There's no doubt about it. Okay. So these are lotus. The lotus is the energy center in the mind. Okay, and thinking center of our thinking. No longer the heart nor its corresponding lotus, the originating center of our emotional and sensational being. That means even your mind is. You are out of your mind, and even you are out of your heart also. Even the emotions, you feel them to be somewhere else, not necessarily in the body. That's what he's saying. No? No longer can the brain nor its corresponding mental lotus remain the center of our thinking. No longer the heart nor its corresponding lotus, the originating center of our emotional and sensational being. The origin of all our emotions are outside, not the heart. They are coming from outside, and they are entering into your heart, and the thoughts are entering into your mind. Okay? The conscious center of our being, our thought, our will and action, even the original force of our sensations and emotions, rise out of the body and mind and take a free station above them. You feel yourself to be outside the body, very clear. Rise out of the body and mind and take a free station, not imprisoned anymore in the body-mind life. They are outside the body-mind life, free. That is the mukti. We use the word mukti, freedom, liberation. That's why the soul is now free. It can move about anywhere it wants. It is not imprisoned in the body. Above them, again, very clear. Now, no longer have we the sensation of living in a body, but are above it as its Lord, possessor, or Ishvara, and at the same time encompass it with a wider consciousness than that of the imprisoned physical sense. There you are, very clear. He's saying that when you move out, when you lose your identification with body-mind life, you feel yourself to be outside the body. I'll just tell you one experience which Niruddha had. He said that as he was moving one day, okay, he suddenly felt that there's somebody else with him. Okay, and he was puzzled. There is nobody physically, and yet I feel that someone is walking with me. What is this? So he wrote to Sriranga, and Sriranga told him, it's there in his correspondence with Niruddha. So Sriranga told him that is the first sign of losing your identity with the body-mind life. Part of your consciousness has gone out, and part of it is there. That's why he used the word certain. You remember? It's certain. Okay, somewhat, not full. So, not complete, but full. So, this is what happens. You feel yourself to be outside the body. Okay? But he couldn't recognize what it was. So, Now we come to realize with the very living force of reality, normal and continuous. This is when you not experience, but when you realize and you are outside the body, now it becomes normal and continuous. What the sages meant when they spoke of the soul carrying the body, or when they said that the soul is not in the body, but the body in the soul. So you can have several things. Now you feel that your consciousness is in the body. At that time, you feel that your body is a small dot in your consciousness. Small dot because your consciousness has become cosmic. Okay, you feel that the body is inside your consciousness. So that it gets reversed. That's why Mother and Srimati use the word reversal of consciousness. Okay, it's opposite. In the beginning, the consciousness is in the body. Now it becomes the body in the consciousness. And that is the reason why when Vivekananda realized his soul, and Ramakrishna had actually forecast, he said that as soon as he realizes who he really is, he will leave his body and go away. And that's exactly what he did. He went to a friend in his subtle body and told him, I have spat out the body. Now, you can't spit out the body if you are in the body. So he is outside and the body is a small impurity in his consciousness and he is spitting it out. Okay, this is the word he used. He used the word spit out. So that makes a lot of sense. And when you spit out your body, you are no more, you are free and you can go wherever you want. You can escape. Okay, so this is what this is very clear language. Now we come to realize with a very living force of reality, which becomes normal and continuous, what the sages meant when they spoke of the soul carrying the body, or when they said that the soul is not in the body, but the body in the soul. It is from above the body and not from the brain that we shall ideate and will. That's what Srimati said in a letter. All my Arya writings were not from the brain. They came from above and my pen simply wrote it down. But sometimes he used the typewriter also. So simply, his mind is silent and the thoughts are coming from inside, channeling into his hand or typewriter, and he is writing all these things with a silent mind. Okay, that's exactly. It is from above the body and not from the brain that we shall ideate and will. Ideate, get ideas and think. The noun from, the verb from ideas, ideation and will. The brain action will become only a response and movement of the physical machinery to the shock of the thought force and will force from above. So the physical machinery of the brain also changes because it has to be consistent and it has to conform to the ideas and emotions coming from above. So it becomes a response. It's only responding. At our level, our mind and heart are not responding to the higher movement. The higher movement is coming all the time, but we are not able to respond to it. Okay, so, but now it becomes possible to respond to it. All will be originated from above. Now note that your thinking, your action, your emotions, everything is being dictated from above. You are only obeying these things. And in the beginning, you are obeying like a puppet in the beginning. But later on, you participate also in the action. All will be originated from above. From above, all that corresponds in gnosis to our present mental activity takes place. Now that footnote which is there, and that footnote is very interesting what he's saying. Many, if not all, of these conditions of the Gnostic change can and indeed have to be attained long before we reach the Gnosis. In other words, even when you are at the higher mind level, which is the lowest of the spiritual planes of consciousness, you can get reflections of these higher planes in the mind. But it is the reflections, not the real thing. So that's already something. You see like a mirror. You see the higher planes like in a mirror. You don't experience them, but you see their reflections. That's what he's saying. So in other words, even when you are in the higher mind level or the element mind level, which are lower than the overmind and supermind, some truths of the supermind and overmind can come into you. And so you realize, okay? That's exactly what happens. That's why the Upanishads and the Vedas, all they had glimpses of all these things. If any of those sages in the Upanishads and in the Vedas, if they had actually experienced permanently, continuously, instead they use the word continuously, then the transformation would have taken place. But the transformation did not take place, so therefore it was only glimpses that they had. Okay, so I'm reading that footnote again once again. Many, if not all, of these conditions of the cosmic change can and indeed have to be attained long before we reach the gnosis, but imperfectly at first, as if by reflection. See, very clear. In higher mind itself, and more completely in what we may call an overmind consciousness between mentality and gnosis. Mentality is the normal mentality and the supermind. Even when you are in those, and he has used actually the word higher mind, he has not said illumined mind or intuitive mind, but the higher you go, the more the reflection becomes clear. And in the overmind, the supermind is seen as though through a translucent glass. Okay. You can see it, okay, but you may not experience it in the overmind consciousness, but you can see it. So that's what he's saying. Interesting footnote, which is not a footnote in the SABCL. Okay, so now we can go to the next one. So one of you has to read. Who will read? Yes, please do that. But this center.
But this center and this action are free, not bound, not dependent on the physical machine, not clamped to a narrow ego sense. It is not involved in body. It is not shut up in a separated individuality, feeling out for clumsy contacts with the world out, or groping inward for its own deeper spirit. For in this great transformation, we begin to have a consciousness not shut up in a generating box, but diffused freely and extending self-existently everywhere. There is or may be a center, but it is a convenience for individual action, not rigid, not constitutive or separative. The very nature of our conscious activities is henceforth universal, one with those of the universal being. It proceeds from universality to a supple and variable individualization. It has become the awareness of the infinite being who acts always universally, though with emphasis on an individual formation of its energies. But this emphasis is differential rather than separative. And this formation is no longer what we now understand by individuality. There is no longer a petty, limited, constructed person shut up in the formula of his own mechanism. This state of consciousness is so abnormal to a present mode of being that to the rational mind who does not possess it, it may seem impossible or even a state of alienation, but once possessed, it vindicates itself even to the mental intelligence by its greater calm, freedom, light, power, effectivity of will, veritable truth of ideation and feeling. For this condition begins already on the higher levels of liberated mind and can therefore be partly sensed and understood by mind intelligence. Only when it leaves behind the mental levels, but it rises to perfect self-possession only in the supramental gnosis.
Yeah. So again, a variation of text between SABCL and CWSA. The third line, but it rises. We have but it rises, but Rachana read only it rises. That's the difference between the SABCL and the CWSA. So I always mark those things in my text, and I'll do that with the footnote also. Okay. So very interesting para again. and we'll go carefully and look at what he's saying. Okay, so, but this center and this action are free, not bound. Now, what does it mean by that? This center, which center? The center of your consciousness, which is now lodged outside the body, outside the mind and outside the heart. It is outside. That's the center. The center which is experiencing the cosmic consciousness, not in the body. It's not ego. It's your consciousness, pure consciousness. You can say also soul if you want. Okay. But this action, but the center and action are free, not bound. What does it mean by that? Free means not subject to nature's action anymore. You are not bound to the body, mind, life. Therefore, you are free from the three gunas. The sattva, rajas, tamas. You are triguna atita. Triguna atita. You are free, not bound. When you are in the identified with your body, mind, life, and you feel yourself to be in the body, you are bound. You are not aware of your soul. But now, when your consciousness goes out, you are aware of your consciousness and soul, and you feel yourself to be outside the body, mind, life, and the body, mind, life are only instruments. It was your house of imprisonment. Okay, so that's what you say. Free. Free means exactly that. Now, you are not, the actions and the thoughts and the emotions are not coming from inside the body. Later on, he has used a very interesting word. He has used generating box. At our level, our box is the body, mind, life, and we feel that all our thoughts are coming out of our head, all our emotions are coming out of our heart, and all our actions are coming out of our body. So that is generating. The box of body, mind, life is generating thought, emotion, and action. But it is not so now. When you are outside, the thought, emotion, and actions are all being dictated from above, not from nature. Nature is body, mind, life. Nature is universally matter, life, and mind. But you are outside. It's coming from outside, from whatever plane. It may be from higher planes. It may not come from the supermind, but it may come from our mind. It may come from, depending on the individual. It depends on the individual. So that's what he's saying. It is so it is not clamped to a narrow ego sense. The word clamp is very interesting. No? See, the consciousness is clamped. It is absolutely tightened with the ego sense. It is not involved in body. It is not shut up in a separated individuality, feeling out for clumsy contacts with the world outside and groping inward for its own deeper spirit. So, when you are involved in the body, your contact with the outside world is clumsy. What does it mean? Clumsy means you are using your senses. It's your senses which are showing you, but they are clumsy. Why? Because when you see someone, suppose you have a friend, okay, and he is very serious, you think that he is thinking and far away, and when he is smiling, you feel that he is very friendly towards you. Not necessarily. Suppose the person is a hypocrite. He'll be smiling at you, but he is harboring inside himself, he'll be harboring wrong thoughts about you. So it is clumsy. Your perception is clumsy. You are not seeing the reality, you are seeing only the outer phenomena. So that's why Siddhartha is saying clumsy contacts. All our senses are clumsy contacts. They are not real contacts. Okay? With the world outside and groping inward for its own deeper self. So when you are looking outside, it is clumsy. And when you are looking inside, it is ignorant. It is groping. Okay? That's your condition when your soul is lodged in the body, mind, life, clamped in the body, mind, life. For in this great transformation, I'm reading the next sentence. For in this great transformation, the great transformation of going towards the gnosis, we begin to have a consciousness not shut up in a generating box. See how interesting this is, uses words. Huh? The box is the body, mind, life, and you feel that your thoughts are coming out of the head, you feel that your emotions are coming out of your heart, okay? Not necessarily heart, but from inside yourself. And your actions also, you feel that you are deciding. So they are coming out of the generating box. The box is generating your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. But it's not so. But diffused freely and extending self-existently elsewhere. Now, this is very interesting what he's saying. Diffuse freely. What is diffuse freely? Your consciousness. It is not concentrated and limited in the body, but it has become diffused. It is there everywhere, outside the body, everywhere, diffused and freely. It can go anywhere and extending self-existently everywhere. So it now does not depend on the body. Self-existent, it exists by itself. That's what he's saying. Each word is he draws a picture, and we have to understand what he means by that. Diffuse. Again, the image of the grain of salt, and the grain of salt being put in a glass of water is very, very useful because it is diffused. The saltiness is now diffused. It is not everywhere. Sorry, it is everywhere, but not located anywhere. That's what I mean by diffused freely and extending everywhere. Whenever you want, you can actually experience the things. Self-existently everywhere. I remember once I had a colleague in the press. Okay, his name was Suman. His brother is still here. His name is Subodh. He used to work in the dispensary. I don't know what he does now, but he had a brother, Suman, and Suman came to the ashram in 1945, and he told me once, he was quite close to me, and he told me that once his consciousness had gone out, and he felt that he is gone out into the universe, that he is somewhere among the stars. That's what he told me. Now look at what Swami is saying. Diffused freely and extending self-existently everywhere. Wherever you want, you can go with that consciousness. Okay, so very, very clear words. And when you speak with people who have had the experience, it becomes absolutely concrete. There is or may be a center. Now that's very interesting. There is or may be a center. And what is that center? The saltiness. That's the center. But it's a convenience for individual action. Not rigid, not constitutive or separative. So, what does he mean by this? Not rigid, very clear. The saltiness is not rigid, it is there everywhere. Not constitutive. It doesn't constitute something. It is not a separating or separative. Okay? It is everywhere. The true individuality is everywhere. The true individuality, when it contracts and becomes a form, it becomes the ego. When the ego expands and disappears, then you have the cosmic consciousness. Okay? Not rigid, not separate. The very nature of our conscious activities is henceforth universal. You feel yourself to be everywhere. But there's something interesting here, because someone can think, oh, if everything in the universe I can know and it's entering into me, will it not be a chaos? So the question is, the openness is there everywhere, but wherever you focus, that is open to you and you can understand. Everything can come into you, but not everything is coming into you. Because if everything is coming into you at one time, you'll go mad. Okay, so it is available to you. So you have to focus there. Okay? If mother wants to know what's happening to somebody, she will focus there. And the focus of the attention will go into that person, identify itself with that person, and she will know what has to be known. In that sense, universal. One with those of the universal being, it proceeds from universality to a subtle and variable individualization. Okay? So now, there may be a center, but that center is not rigid and not with form, color, shape, weight, size. It is supple and variable. It's an individuality, but the individuality is universal, supple and variable. It doesn't have to be absolutely fixed form. It has become the awareness of an infinite being who acts always universally, though with emphasis on the individual formation of its energy. So this is what you realize. You realize that your thought is an energy, individual energy. Your emotion is an individual energy. Your body action is an individual energy. But it is coming all from universal source, not from the body, mind, life. Emphasis. There's an emphasis on the individual. It comes into you and it expresses itself in your thoughts and your emotions and your actions. But it is not the source. The body is not the source. The source is from above. But this emphasis is differential rather than separative. Now, another very interesting thing which you have to understand. Differential and separative. So, I usually use a very interesting, in Life Divine, it's very interesting. So, I'll tell you what I feel. Okay? Take a picture. Okay? You have a nice picture. Okay? And you want to make a puzzle out of it. No? You know what is a pictorial puzzle? What do they call it? You cut the picture and then afterwards the child has to fit all the pieces into it and make a
jigsaw puzzle.
That's it. That's the word. Jigsaw puzzle. Okay. So I take this picture and I draw the lines where I want to cut. Okay. Now there is a difference between the picture which is full and I have drawn the lines where it is to be cut. Now I cut, but I don't separate. Okay. So first is I draw the lines. Already there is a differentiation. Then I do the actual cutting, but I don't separate the pieces. That's the second one. Then I move those pieces 1 or 2 millimeters. Now the differentiation is even more. Okay. Then I move it to 1 centimeter. If I stand back, I can still see the picture, but it is not as clear as when the separation was not taking place, right? Now, if I move those pieces, not 1 or 10 centimeters, but if I move it to 1 meter, the picture has vanished. I don't see the picture. I see only individual pieces. So that is exactly what Sundar is describing here by differential rather than separative. Okay, so you can see the difference of the pieces, but you still see the picture. That's the difference between differential and separative. This okay, so that's what he's saying. The difference between differential and separative. And this formation is no longer what we know, what we now understand by individuality. The individuality is a grain of salt, okay, which is the ego at our level. But when the consciousness goes out, it becomes the saltiness which is everywhere and not the grain of salt. So the true individuality is the saltiness, the essential character, but not the form. Okay. And by the way, your psychic being also has a form. Huh? Don't make a mistake. It's a form. They call it a flame, and you can experience it as a flame. But a mother had a very interesting experience once when there was a lady called Rijuta. She was an American and she used to look after the American correspondence. I live opposite the Gold Coast and my number is 28. But the next one is 30. And she used to live there. That is her house where Manoj Das used to live. Okay, Manoj Das is gone. He is not living anymore. But he used to live there. And before it was Rijuta who was living there. Rijuta was an American lady and who refused to go back. Even her husband was a well-to-do man, but he told her, but she wouldn't go back. She said, no, I want to be here only. And Rijuta, when she had gone to mother once, mother saw her psychic being larger than her body. Okay, now this is a very interesting thing. Normally they say the psychic being is Angushta Matra Purusha. It is just the size of a small. It doesn't say, it doesn't mean to say that it's like a thumb, but it means it's a very small thing, unknown thing in the body. But when she went to mother saw that her psychic being is standing outside her, about 1 foot bigger than her body. And then mother understood something very interesting. She says that then I understood that the supramental body, note carefully, it's very interesting. The supramental body will be the materialization of the psychic being. The psychic being will become the supramental body. Highly interesting. Now you feel that the psychic being is immaterial. It is not immaterial. It is very subtle matter. But that subtle matter will become supramental matter when the body of the supramental man comes. Okay, that's very interesting, and that's what he's saying here. Look carefully. But this emphasis on the individuality, is differential rather than separated. That we have explained just now. And this formation is no longer what we now understand by individuality. Okay, we confuse at our level. We confuse individuality with ego, but the two are separate. Okay, they are not. But at our level, we confuse them, individuality and ego. But there is no longer a petty, limited, constructed person shut up in the formula of its own mechanism. Understand the sentence, okay? There is no longer a petty, limited, constructed person. Who is this petty, limited, constructed person? Your body, mind, and life. And who is constructing you? Universal nature. And your consciousness is shut up in the formula of its own mechanism. It constructs the body. The soul actually participates in the construction of the body. When this development is quite high, it decides where to go in. The soul decides, I'll take birth in the next life in such and such a body. It sees and enters into that body. So it becomes, it's a petty, limited, constructed person, your body, mind, life, shut up in the formula of its own mechanism. It has itself selected that this is the mechanical part. Okay, this is the instrument into which I will enter. Okay, that's what he's saying. This state of consciousness is so abnormal to our present mode of being that to the rational man who does not possess it, it may seem impossible and even a state of alienation. But once possessed, it vindicates itself even to the mental intelligence by its greater calm, freedom, light, power, effectivity of will, verifiable truth of ideation and feelings. So, vindicates. What does it mean? It justifies itself. It proves itself to be true. It vindicates itself. How? Because your whole way of thinking has changed. You are not disturbed anymore. There is a greater calm in the being. It is so different that you can't deny it anymore. Freedom. You feel yourself to be totally free. You are not under any compulsion. Right now, we are under compulsion. Light. We don't see the light, but at that time you will have light. You will have power. You will have effectivity of will. Now, what is meant by effectivity of will? At our level, I may will something. Sometimes it will come true. Sometimes it may not come true. Okay, I will that I have to get this thing. It may come true. It may not come true. But there, the will is always effective. It becomes a reality. Verifiable truth of ideation and feeling. When you get an idea, okay, it's an idea which is not sheer imagination, but you can verify that this idea is true. And also feeling. Okay, I see someone and I feel that this man may not be a good person. Suppose I meet someone at the first time and I get a first impression that he may not be a good man. Now this impression may not be correct at our level. Sometimes it may be correct, but sometimes it's not correct. But at that life, when your body is, when your soul is outside the body, mind, life, your first impression will always be right. That's what Sadhguru is saying. Okay, verifiable truth of feeling. For this condition begins already on the higher levels of liberated mind. Liberated mind, higher mind. So he's saying that this condition, what we are talking about, comes about even at the higher mind level and can therefore be partly sensed and understood by mind intelligence. but or only according to Archana, it rises to perfect self-possession only when it leaves behind the mental levels and goes into the supramental gnosis. What is meant by the mental levels? Very, very clear. Higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind, overmind. Okay? Mental levels. Second level of the spiritual planes. Only into the supramental gnosis. So we stop here today. We have gone 3 minutes beyond the time. Okay? So I found it very, very interesting because the language is so clear, but we have to go behind the words to understand what he's saying. So I hope you
Thank you,
enjoyed it as
Rangana.
much as I did. Okay.
Thank you, Rangana.
Merci.
Okay, au revoir, everybody. Have a nice day.